So, I don't know about you, but for me, the last year has been full of change. Now, how do we approach change? Is that something we're trying to resist? Is that something we are kind of surfing like on a wave? I mean, for me, I try to do the latter. And so if we were to try and do that, how do we do that? How might coaching assist us with that? And how might a coach work with people? How might a leader work with coaching tools to lead their people through change? That and much more we are talking about today with two very distinguished ladies from the Ericksonian family, and I can't wait. Welcome to the second edition of Ericsson Live in April, which is Coaching Culture Month. The program that we are, cards on the table, the program that we'd like to get you interested in is Coaching Competencies for Leaders. And that's all about um, equipping busy, accomplished leaders, executives with coaching tools. So it's not going to make you into a coach. It's not going to teach you the whole thing about how to do a formal coaching session, but it is going to give you those bits and pieces, those elements, that mindset that a coach employs in order to empower their clients, so that you can work with your employees, with your team members, and empower them like a coach would when it's appropriate. And we also go into the differences of when it makes sense to do it, and when you might go into more of a directive leadership approach. And we actually had a nice discussion around that last week, so you might want to check out that stream if you have missed it for any reason. Okay, so today, as we're getting started, I would love to know where you're joining us from. We have, as always, a very international panel today. Um, we not so much in geography, in current geography, but kind of in background. So we have Switzerland being represented, we have China, we have Germany, Canada, and Africa. In one way or another. So where are you joining us from? That's always one of my favorite parts about this, is just to seeing where everybody is joining us from. And yeah, how much change do you feel you've been going through in this last year? Is it fundamental? Has everything changed for you? Is it? I've also heard like people saying nothing changes anymore. Like the change is over now, and nothing ever changes. Everything is exactly the same. So how are you experiencing it? What's your reality like? And what would you like us to discuss so that you leave with, the information that you want, that you need, and you feel like the time you're investing in spending it with us is worth your while. Okay, so let me introduce our first guest for today. Hang on, let me change the camera. So, Avis is a professional, dedicated leadership coach. She has massive business savvy based on more than 20 years of managerial experience in the areas of product, sales, and marketing in multinational companies. The successful career development in both Canada and China enables her to be an expert acquainted with international business. And she's an advocate of supporting leaders to fulfill their potential, fulfill their personal, professional, and organizational growth through facilitation, mentoring, and coaching. Avis, welcome to Ericsson Live. We're glad to have you.
Thank you, Fabian. I'm very happy to be with you today.
Yeah, great. And so give us a little bit of a taste. We already have an introduction now, um, but what is your relationship with change? What might be a significant change that you've gone through, and how does that inform how you work with your clients?
Wow. Definitely same as you. I think COVID is one of the biggest change for me. Some other changes. Yeah, I got an offer to work in a company based in Vancouver 8 years ago. So I within like a couple of days I need to make a decision. So that was a very big change for me and totally moved my entire family from China to Vancouver to Canada 8 years ago. So that's one of my biggest change. And the same for my career change. Like 4 years ago, I quit my previous job and pursue my new career, which is coaching and facilitation. Yeah, I could not imagine, but it happened anyway. So I guess that's also these are all the big changes in my life.
Okay, wonderful. Great. Thank you so much, Avis. We're looking forward to your contributions to today's discussion. And let me introduce Brigitte. Brigitte Eichenberger um, is was born in Switzerland and raised in Switzerland. She soon discovered her passion for people, traveling, culture, and languages, which let her get a Bachelor of Science in Hospitality Management. Her corporate career took her to Hilton, Compass Group, and Goldman Sachs, working internationally in the areas of administration, marketing, operations, and communication for more than 17 years. Back in her hometown in Zurich, Brigitte's love for the performing arts made her change the industry. There we already have one of the keywords. Obtain a master's in arts administration and enter the opera world, where she worked in Germany and last in Switzerland as head of planning and artistic administration for the opera in Zurich. And I find that job title fascinating. Artistic administration is is amazing. It's really fascinating. And the joy to work impactful with people brought Brigitte to Vancouver in 2014, where she got certified as a professional coach and a credentialed coach with the ICF. Brigitte is also part of the Erickson faculty team. She co-created and facilitates coaching competencies for leaders. There it is again, which is a course that focuses on building confidence and competence in leaders that wish to develop their leadership skills through solution-focused communication and coaching. That's much more succinct than I was saying it before. As a lifelong learner with passion to serve others, Brigitte, as a coach and trainer, is dedicated to supporting professionals being successful in facing adaptive changes and moving through transitions with a sustainable, resourceful mindset. Brigitte, wow, welcome. Welcome to Ericsson Live.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. What a joy. Thanks, Fabian.
Yeah, lovely to have you. So tell us a little more about that. So you mentioned quite a bit of change and
Mm.
switches and adaptation throughout that introduction. So um, maybe take us a little through your your experience with change and how that has shaped you, maybe.
Heavens, how long have you got? We would need like a whole day. Um, no, so what I've noticed is really it seems that change and transition seem to be part of my overall life structure. And I wasn't looking for it, but it just so happened that from leaving hotel school and starting in the hotel industry, I just noticed at one point that the meaning was missing and the passion was missing. And there was nothing wrong. Hilton, was a fabulous experience. I just knew something is like, okay, was this it? The classic, was this it? And I wasn't in my 40s, okay? So this was it was not my midlife crisis. And I simply, I was looking for, I always had, the passion for the performing arts. I've always been singing, dancing, drawing, anything to do with the arts. And I wanted to be part of that world. And that desire was so strong that at that point I decided, you know what, it's time to switch. And I knew that I would have to start at the beginning again. So starting at the bottom, so to speak. And I think that is one of the things I noticed over the years, to restart, to start over. When you maybe have built, a certain level of standing, title, career, salary, that can be very daunting and it can be prohibitive for a lot of people to even go into their mind to explore what else is out there that might be more in line with their meaning, with their purpose of why they're here. So that happened, and then I was in the opera world, and I was in between. I had to first go and get my degree in arts administration. So in order to pay for that, I joined the banking world, which I never thought I would. And it was so interesting. It was just so interesting, the different industries, and to notice that it's always about people. And change is always about people, no matter in which industry you're in. The change is not really about the systems or about the processes. It's all about the people.
Right.
Yeah. And then I moved into the opera world, and then I had a burnout, and I had a very intense experience at the Opera House in Zurich, and I left and was then looking again, what am I doing next? And I literally stumbled across coaching, and I knew this is it. This was the missing piece, because for me to work impactful one-on-one, that was missing, right? That was missing in that whole institution where, yes, I was doing something useful and meaningful, but for me, it was not fulfilling me and giving me energy. It was not refueling me. So that's how I ended up in coaching and teaching.
Yeah. Wow, there's so much in there that I just want to jump on and say, yes, I agree that matches with my experience. Um, and Yeah, let me just kind of take a question from the audience first, and then we can dive into, we can see where this conversation takes us. So Avis, first of all, Hedi Chen is watching us, and she's saying nice to see Avis again. So you have a
Wow. Hello, Heidi.
a fan in the audience, which is nice. We have people from Poland, from Indonesia, from Edmonton in Canada, um, from Turkey, so all over the place. So if you're joining us now, and you haven't written yet where you're joining us from, please feel free to add to that collection, to our scratch map, if you will. So we have a good idea of who we're talking to. And we have a viewer. Unfortunately, the name doesn't show up. Sometimes that happens with LinkedIn, but they're saying they would be interested in discussing how to stay focused and motivated during the transition after a decision to change, and managing the hard parts, they're adding after that. So I don't know who feels called on to say something about this. Who wants to start?
Yeah, actually, when Brigitte mentioned her experience, I had this sentence on my mind: is people always overestimate what they could achieve in 1 year, but people always underestimate what they could achieve in 3 years. So that's totally like a yes, change is hard, and especially for the first 1 year, especially at the beginning of the change, that's so not comfortable. But actually, if you really find what's the value of that change, and if you could really see the vision, what the what what the vision, like what the change could lead us, I guess, like for me, that's my personal experience. I could totally um, stay in the change, and not just surviving the change, but seek the way to thrive in the change. So I guess if you really see the picture, see the vision, you know where the change lead you. At the same time, you know the value, not just the company value, your value, why this matters to me. So yeah, that's just my answer. How about you, Brigitte?
Oh, I couldn't agree more, Avis. You pretty much said it already. I think the whole idea of, sort of taking the decision, that's so big for a lot of people. It was including for me. And then suddenly, the decision is made, and you're like, okay, and what now? And sort of the get going, right? So, okay, what needs to happen first and next? And as this viewer is saying, how do you stay motivated through that? And for me, what always comes up and resonates strongly is something that Marilyn Atkinson and also Richard Himes from the Erickson leadership team are always saying is, what you focus on is what you get more of. So when you are in your change, what is it that you want to focus on? Do you want to focus on all the stuff that might be hard, and it's like, oh, I don't feel like it, or, everything is going wrong? Or do you want to focus on where do you want to go? And notice the things that are going right, the little wins, the little steps, even if you're making it out of bed, and just go for it one more time. That is really where you can find your strength. And then, as Avis was saying, if you know and remind yourself, why am I doing this? Why is it so important for me? That will remind you of the strength and the importance of the whole journey and why you're undertaking it. So eyes on the prize type thing.
Yeah, I always go back to a quote, which is I find it super powerful, by Viktor Frankl, who was an inmate in a German concentration camp. So like, basically the most horrible circumstances you could ever find yourself in. One of his quotes is, "The person who knows their why can deal with any how." So if you just like Brigitte is saying, if you know why you're doing something, the how, that doesn't matter all that much. It's secondary. Like as long as you are really dialed into the why, the how will develop itself and it will show up. And so I'm wondering, dear person who asked the question, if this is addressing your question, because you could also interpret the question. Okay. So it seems they're saying it's very helpful, because I figure it could also be interpreted in the way of, so once you've made the decision to change, how do you still perform well in what you're already doing, but you're going to change soon, right? So that's also something that might be sometimes, you have this shiny new thing on the horizon, but I don't know, for the next 2 weeks, for the next month, you're still working in the old circumstances. So how do you kind of stay in integrity, and how do you give your best even as you're preparing for a new adventure, as the old adventure is coming to an end? So I don't know if there's something that you guys kind of have coming up for you around that.
Yes, I do actually. So there for me, my whole planning and organizing mind kicks in. um, and from all the roles and positions that I had in the corporate world, I was fortunate enough to really hone my skills of planning and organizing. And your how becomes so much easier if you take time to plan, right? In French, it's called mise en place. So you're putting things into place.
For
in
cooking,
the
right?
kitchen, you call it like that.
Yeah.
Yes. And that has stayed with me, and it is so true. If you take time to prepare, you have later on time, because you have organized it, you've planned it, you know what you're doing. So at any given point in time. And for some of us, this is quite natural, and for others, this is a real effort, and it's a struggle, because you might sort of have so many things that are up here, right? So it's like, okay, this is what I still need to do. As you were saying, Fabian, I'm still in the old, and then here is all the new, and way too many things flying around. So bringing it to a plan, chunking it down, make it manageable. How do you eat an elephant? You're chopping it up into little pieces. Not that we want to eat elephants, sorry. But how do you make it manageable, right? Yeah, that's coming up for me.
Nice.
Yeah, actually, I have this idea is, as a leader, actually, how could we really support a team and go through that? And like a change is inevitable, especially for this Vuca age. Always say this, like even after, like during COVID, we're still in the COVID actually in Canada. So after we're going through these, we like how could we really support people to be ready for the change? So as a leader, how could you really let people know what happens and what kind of new initiative we need to define to really let us thrive in the change? And with these new initiatives, how could we bring all the important people in the conversation and let everybody really align this change and align this new initiative? What is the vision and what is the goal? How could we really achieve that goal together? And at the same time, like let's define the role and responsibility. Let's define the action plan we need to achieve, and at the same time really take care of people. Let people say, let people have their voice, and really as a leader, how to monitor the people's relationship. How could we really remind people to see from different perspective? Then step by step, the we are forming. And once we have this we identity, actually people we will have less fear, but we will have the confidence. We will win the future. And I also like another sentence on my mind is the more where you put your focus, the energy is there. So how could we let the whole team focus on that goal and let all the energy focus there? Definitely we will win. So I guess as a leader, we really need to see the team from different perspective to make things happen.
Yeah, wonderful. And that's a big part of creating a coaching culture, right? So let's break that down a little bit. So change is inevitable, you said, and that's one of the 5 Ericksonian principles that we use that's a mindset that we hold for our clients, that we embody for our clients, so that they kind of pick it up and also hold that for themselves. And kind of the quoting machine today, but there's one quote by Alan Watts that I also really love, an image where he says, I'm paraphrasing, resisting change is like clinging to the security of a rock that is being hurled off a cliff. Yeah, so you have the feeling like you're clinging to something really solid, but actually in the big picture it's moving and there's nothing you can do about it. So when people say, oh, I hope we get back to normal after COVID and that sort of thing, it's like, yeah, I don't know, getting back to something usually doesn't work. It doesn't work like that. It's going to be different on the other side. Let's talk about how we want to make it. Let's talk about what do we want to create for ourselves, rather than just kind of going to the status quo ante, because restoration like that, it just doesn't really work like that. And there was something else, Avis, that I wanted to pick up on, that you said, which was really, for somebody who doesn't know what Vuca is, just as we're throwing around kind of things like that, what does Vuca stand for?
Okay, uncertainty, complication. What's the other two?
Volatility.
Help me. Yeah.
Volatility.
And there's another one.
Ambiguity.
Volatility, and there's ambiguity. Yes. Yeah. See, that's teamwork.
Yeah, exactly. So all of that is short for nobody knows what's going on. Right? The world has become so complex, multipolar, dynamic. With the internet, the growth of knowledge is exponential, of communication. So nobody has all the answers. And I think that's actually a big step. Admitting that is kind of a big step in creating a coaching culture and being authentic with people and getting people to pull in the same direction, because we're all making this up as we go along, and that might not be very reassuring for some people. Also culturally, that might be a problem. But if we're talking about a coaching mindset, admitting that there's a lot of things that we don't know and then making the best of it can be really powerful, because it keeps us from overlooking potential and new solutions, is what I'm positing here. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah.
Yes. So I think you're really hitting on something there. And also, as Avis was saying, the change, as I said at the beginning as well, it's about the people, right? So I think with all this complexity going on, with all the technology, what I sometimes find is that we forget how to actually have a conversation with someone, be it in person or be it over a virtual platform. That is still needed, and it is the most fundamental skill that we want to put time into. I noticed when you were saying, Avis, the leader, how can we as leaders in our own right, in every position, how can we support ourselves and the others through the change? I always noticed in change management projects and changes going on in the different companies, it always went well when I took the time to go and speak to the people, and not just once, not just once sort of broadly saying, okay, this is why we're doing it, and this is we're here and we're going there, but really one on one took the time to listen and to talk to the people that were involved and impacted. Things always went less well when I assumed that by sort of making general announcements that would be enough, and that would then create this rallying around, and that you were saying, because I thought, oh, I've communicated it now, so everybody gets it, everybody's on board, right? So why shouldn't they? And that huge, I guess, assumption that we make, or I made for sure, that when I made the change in my head, because I have been living and sitting with it for some time, that automatically the people that are hearing this for the first time have made the change as well in that moment. And that's just not true. Yeah.
It almost sounds like you were
I
changing the
also
world
that,
one conversation at a time.
Oh my
yeah,
goodness. Yeah.
exactly.
Avis, go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to add one thing is in the time of change, in the uh, age of change, actually the most important thing is to find what will not be changed as a person or as an organization. Otherwise, if we are stable inside, we could stand the outside, the change environment. As a person, if we know what's really important to us, what's our core value, what's the character or the quality or the person I need to live out, which is more important, and what's my vision for the future, I know that will not be changed. And I know through this changing environment, my value, my character will be tested even more powerfully. I know that's good for me. I'm building my character. I'm building the future uh, I could achieve. So I think that will not be changed if we define what will not be changed in the changing age. Same for organization. If we really know what's the purpose of our organization, why we do this, like you just mentioned Erickson, right? Why we are so passionate for Erickson is not because Erickson is a coaching school, not because Erickson is we have like 41 years old already. The reason is we know why Erickson exist. The purpose is to change the world one conversation at a time, and really ignite that 3% of the people. Then we could really increase the overall consciousness of the human being, right? So these are all the purpose for us, and we know it's important. We know that will not be changed. Then even the environment change, even everything change, we know that is the most important thing for Erickson. And we know through the changing time, the world even need us. So I guess that's the thing we that will stable us.
So everybody, what's this bringing up for you as we're talking about this? What's coming up for you? What are your experiences with change? What have you noticed works for yourself when you go through change? And what are you struggling with? What do you want to do even better? And as you're typing your answers, maybe um, one image to underline what Avis is saying, um, in terms of when we choose, what are we all about? What won't change? It's really about who are you serving? How are you impacting people's lives for the better? And one famous example is Kodak, who didn't quite do that right, because Kodak decided, this digital photography thing, that's not us. That's not our competition. We work with chemicals. We have these we have these processes. We make films, and that's how we define ourselves as a photography companies. Whereas some other companies said, well, look, we create memories for people. We help people to hold on to the fleeting moments and to the precious like moments and images in their life. And whether we do that with chemicals or we do that with bits and bytes doesn't really matter, right? And maybe you can see how much more powerful the latter is than the former, and also how much kind of more business savvy and more adaptable and more resilient and robust it is. Because methods change, but purpose is something that endures a lot longer. So that's just Avis kind of illustrating a little more what you were saying.
Yeah, Fabian, I love that you're stressing that purpose. And as Avis was saying, if we ourselves are within ourselves aligned, right? We're becoming this pause, this quiet and calm center, because we know what our purpose is. We know in that sense who we are, if I may say that, in terms of what roles do we want to pick up? What roles do we want to step into? And that is fundamentally linked with our purpose. So who do we want to be? And what do we want to stand for? And that can help us being resilient through the change.
Yeah. So one other comment that we have from the audience is from Valerie, and Valerie is saying, "Oh, that's almost the same subject during the webinar from the ICF and ACMP just before. Well aligned." And for everybody who doesn't know what that means, so the ICF is the International Coach Federation, the ACMP is the Association of Change Management Practitioners, and I'm really excited about this because I'm a member of both organizations. And I feel like they have a lot to give each other, and I think we can create wonderful things when we kind of bring the change management, methodologies and the experience together with the coaching mindset. That can be really powerful. Especially in my experience, background as a change management consultant, on projects, the client's contract manager usually always negotiated that change management budget, let's cut that out, and then they felt very accomplished because they got the price down and I saved money, you know and yeah, I think now it's starting to change a little bit, that actually it's like you're saying, Brigitte, it's not just, oh, we want to introduce SAP and then we have the new processes and that's it, but you kind of have to shepherd people through it a little bit. You have to, well, let me not say what it is, but Brigitte, maybe you want to go a little more into what does that mean when it's about the people and not about the processes? What might be some of the things that we actually want to pay attention to, rather than just putting a process in place and say, well, eat or die.
Yes.
Very German expression.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So I think strongly when you are heading up a change, you might be a leader that has been charged with, implementing this, getting us from here to there. And the initial, of course, knowing the why, as Avis was saying, is crucial. And what I mean with focusing on the people is really taking the time to first elicit and discover and realize who are your stakeholders in this. So not just the people that are involved in doing something in a different way in this process, or if it's a system, but who is impacted by this and who might have an important input to this that you might not have thought of, just simply because you don't have their perspective. So that's one thing in terms of sort of a technical focus that you want to have with people to involve them. But the other side is, for me, once you have decided you're going to go for it and you are starting to communicate and you are informing people, at that stage, it is really worth, I've noticed, my time to go and gauge where somebody is at. Because if you just have one person in the group that is really resisting this change out of different reasons, and you are not focusing on that person, excuse me, and going to listen to them and ask them and have a conversation and understanding why they are resisting this change, you potentially have one person that can spread this resistance around like crazy. We all know what impact one person can have. And if the person is resisting, maybe because they're afraid of losing something, maybe they're afraid because they don't have the skill, maybe they don't know the why, or they haven't understood it, maybe they have simply a different opinion. Maybe they are so in their comfort zone that they say, well, there is no need to change. If you're not spending the time on that person, you're risking to throw off your complete change. Just one person. Yeah.
Yeah. So really robust, expansive stakeholder management. Rather putting in a little too much time than a little too little, because it might cost you down the road. And I think another one to expand on that maybe a little bit is checking in with people. And like you were saying, not just assuming, okay, I've put this communique out there, I've sent the memo, and that should be enough, right? I mean, it says it right there. I mean, we often pretend that we are these cerebral beings that are pure rationality in economics, for example, right? And even economics now, they're starting to realize that's not really how it works. The emotions play a role, whether we want them to or not. And what ties into that is it's not a gradual progression of like, oh, I'm making it through change, and now a little more and now a little more, without going through the entire J curve, and kind of spoiling what we're doing in the course. But it's just not linear. You might have the change being hyped in the beginning, everybody being super excited, being on board, and you think, oh, well, change management, check, done, right? But then when the implementation hits and things aren't quite as rosy as people have imagined them, yeah, what do you do then? Like what you might have to put, that's where you might even have to focus the most. You might even want to put the brakes a little bit as the hype train is building in the beginning, so that the disappointment isn't so big afterwards. And so there's all kinds of things where it feels like, but they were so like, it feels like whiplash, and it's just normal. It just happens. So being aware of that is an important step in being able to manage people's expectations and being able to support them in seeing the benefit of the change and seeing how they can contribute to the change as something that's not just happening to them. Sorry, I'm on my soapbox a lot today. It's just a kind of a topic that I've worked on for a lot of time, so I have very strong opinions. So tell me to shut up if I'm doing too much.
No, I think you said it really well, Fabian. And it's, I think it can work both ways. So if somebody is not really excited about the benefits, right? So it might be that for them, that carrot is not juicy enough. It's not enticing enough to sort of step in and engage. It could also be that it would decrease their dissatisfaction, right? So it could decrease something that they're really fed up with. It could decrease certain pain points within their working life. So again, if you have a conversation with them, you'll notice, what is it about? And the simple fact that you're taking the time to listen is most of the time invaluable, and simply that fact will support you engaging with them and them feeling, okay, I matter. What I have to say is listened to and it's important. And therefore, they already start to engage instead of shutting down, rolling up the pavement, and simply walk off in their minds.
Yeah, agree. Like even you will not use their proposals or suggestions, but they are heard. then definitely they will commit because they are heard and they know their view or like their point of view matters, right? And I also remember like in the past so many years, like we already see the companies because they don't change, like you just mentioned, Kodak, right? And also many companies, like they were so huge, Nokia, Motorola. I remember, I forgot which leader mentioned that when either from like a formal Nokia or Motorola, he mentioned like the problem is we didn't do anything wrong. We do everything correct from the process
Exactly.
perspective and from the but from management perspective. But what they miss is they try to protect their existing business. But if you don't look forward, you don't have the future oriented. You will put your too much focus on the internal, too much focus on to protect existing business. You forget it's a VUCA age. You forget what the customers want in the next 10 years, and you forget there are so many new technologies. How might you apply that to help you even more, like help you even like powerfully to achieve your vision? So again, let's go back to the conversations. If you are not clear to you what's really important for your company vision, company purpose, and the company value, it's very easy for you to put all your focus on the process and the system without really see like what's the new environment, how could I adapt into that new environment, what kind of technology I could utilize, I could use to even support the fulfillment of my vision and purpose. I had another thing on my mind right now is many decades ago, actually, before Apple is so big, somebody interviewed Steve Jobs. He asked, "Hey, Intel and both Intel and Microsoft, they're so big. How could you compete with them?" I remember Steve Jobs just said one sentence: "I'm waiting for a time." That's actually before the mobile, actually. He just said, "I'm waiting for a time." See, he is ready. He know the purpose. He know Apple's vision, mission, value, and he's just there waiting. And then time is there. The mobile time comes, and see how expansion, how big Apple is today, right? So I guess as a leader, how could you be prepared? How could you proactively seeking change, proactively to make yourself aligned, make the organization aligned? Then I'm ready for a change. I'm waiting for the time. Then when the time is there, they thrive. So that's yeah.
Nice. To quote Hamilton the musical, I'm not standing still, I'm lying in wait. So really, really preparing for that moment to pounce. Yeah,
Yeah.
wonderful.
I think what you said, Avis, is just sparked within me, the idea of just focusing on one thing is not good enough, right? It's not enough if you just focus on the processes and your how. It's not enough if you're just focusing on your vision and, your products. It has to be both and. We live in a both
Exactly.
and. And
Exactly.
and that goes also for teams. What I always find very interesting when I'm working with clients is that, they sort of, there is and I'm generalizing here, there is this focus on, okay, how are we getting it done most efficient? And I love efficiency. How are we getting it done most efficiently? And, how can we cut costs? How do we get more revenue and all of that? But then if you have this change coming or people are forced into this change, at times in the teams, you have too many people that are heavily preferencing this thinking about the process, being creative within the process. And you don't have enough of what we call the visionaries that are sort of saying, okay, how can we change? What can we be? If not what we are now, to still live our values and our purpose. So the balance that who you are having on your team is so important. That's what just came up for me. Sorry, Fabian.
No, no, I love it. And what's coming up for me around that is, yes, we want that balance and that diversity in a way on a team, right? We want the kind of differences of opinion and differences of viewpoints and of experiences and of life perspective and all of that. But I actually think that's not enough because a lot of companies have their systems set up in a way that they don't support the dreamers enough. And if you raise your head and you come up with an idea, either people say, well, that's stupid, forget about it. And people try that 5 times and then they become really cynical. I've worked with a lot of those people in public service. Um, or they say, great idea, why don't you do it? And you take it on, and here's 20 hours more work per week. So, it's kind of this like, yeah, you go, you do it, but you're not getting any resources, and you have to do it besides your day job. And you in a way you feel like you're getting punished for trying to innovate and to advance things. So I'm wondering, and I'm wondering what your experiences are. How might, as we're talking about coaching culture, how might companies create incentives to not just pay lip service to, oh yes, please show us your ideas and please be proactive and take ownership, but how might they create incentives in the system to actually honor that?
Very good question. And I love it because as leaders, I have experienced in all the different industries that I have been in. I'm using a UK phrase that says, the fish stinks from the head. And I know that might not make much sense, but if your top leader, if your founder, your president, your C-suite, if one of them is taking this culture, this coaching culture seriously, and is actually going to be the torchbearer and the supporter of a real setup that entices and encourages people to bring new possibilities, to bring new ideas that are then supported and maybe even incentivized if you're bringing them to the table. If you create a structure, it is the same thing than if you're creating a process for your operations. So why might it be so difficult to create a process of, okay, what are we doing if somebody comes up with a new idea? How can we provide a framework where people have some dedicated time to spend on ideas, on brainstorming, on throwing ideas around? And why are we not having a process to then say, okay, what's happening next? What do we want to do with this? And how is this reflected within, I don't know, a performance management tool? That's how I see it.
Really becomes part of the culture. Everything else is kind of surface level. That's really where ultimately the incentive is. Because if people spend time on doing things wrong, like Avis was saying, because a lot of ideas just don't work out. Nine out of 10 ideas just go nowhere, right? I listened to a podcast recently where they were talking about, everybody knows the story about Henry Ford and kind of the assembly line and how that revolutionized everything. But hardly anybody talks about how much they iterated to get there and how many failed attempts they had before everything got turned upside down. And they had all these kind of ideas on what to do and having things on chains in the ceiling and whatever. And just for years, things went wrong all the time until that one idea, until they iterated enough and they had enough experience to have that one thing where everything fit together and it just changed the world. But that doesn't happen overnight, and that doesn't happen when you play it safe. And I think you're completely right. The performance management review process is where, like, if it's in there, then it's real. My opinion.
And also have a platform for pilots, right? As you are saying, it's reiterations, it's a new version. Okay, let's have a pilot. What vessel do we have within the organization to pilot something, to try something out, to see if it works, or to refine, or to have a reiteration, so that it is not just, as you say, lip service. And I think the other aspect of this is that if you are trying to structure an idea before you've actually allowed the idea to sort of develop, that's it. It's dead in the water, right? So the whole idea of how can you work with your mind in a way that it first allows for some, let's go crazy in our minds. Let's figure out the possibilities. Let's go wild in our minds before we're saying, oh, it's not worth it. It's too expensive. It can't work because of this, right? So I think to keeping these thinking spaces apart is another important aspect.
Yeah. And also with everything you just said, I totally agree with that. But it's actually the essence is really, do we have trust in the team? Do people really have each other's back? I really like a metaphor actually Erickson uses a lot. This is the metaphor like for the team member, it's like the instrument. For the team, it's like the orchestra. And for the leader, it's like conductor. And for the founder, it's like composer. I really like that metaphor. Is how could each function really play their role, and then really, as a composer, how could you really cast the vision? Because we do need a vision. But as the conductor, how could you really let the team know where to focus, where's the goal? And as the orchestra, as the instrument, we do have the day-to-day operation to get things done. So yeah, it's really like how could we in the process to build this we system, which is full of trust and full of the accountability. So
yeah, I love that image. I love that image of the orchestra. Yes. And of the conductor, because a lot of managers don't act like conductors. A lot of managers act like circus artists that are everywhere and keep the plates spinning. Like they run over here, they run over there. And a conductor doesn't play every instrument himself, right? He trusts the people to play their instrument to the best of their abilities, because that's why they're there. So everybody has their role. And then, I mean, I think, and we had a chat with that about that with Paul, and he mentioned something, and if I kind of extrapolate and I bring the mindset that he brought to it into this discussion, I think the evolution of the orchestra is actually when you take it one step further and you get to the jazz band, and you don't have the one person in front anymore, but you have the different people of the band talking to each other through the music and developing something together as it evolves and emerges.
Wow.
So thank you for bringing that up, Avis. Like that, I hadn't thought of it like that before. That just came up as you were talking about that.
Beautiful flow in the team, and that's totally agile team. That's total agility, right? Like once you really have the trust, you evoke people's creativity. Then we are in the rhythm and we are in the flow to build an even beautiful music. Not just originally where the composer putting us.
Yeah, exactly, and not play this piece like this is where it starts, this is where it ends, but just kind of see where it takes us and create something new in the moment. Maybe, yeah, nice. I like it. And Laura is also bringing up that Brigitte, to your point. That the design thinking methodology is fantastic, to keep certain thinking spaces separate and to allow for some freedom. And might I say, coaching is also fantastic because it kind of can pick and choose from certain methodologies, and coaches are experts in process, like in terms of how to come up with great ideas and how to get clarity for yourself, for get that vision, right? So that can be really, really helpful. So we're kind of already approaching the landing here, believe it or not. So if you have another question for us, get that out there so we can still answer that. Avis, before we wrap up, I'm really curious because you have a really good overview of both Canada and China. right? And in Canada, in Switzerland, in Germany, if we create 1%, 2% of growth in the GDP, we're over the moon. It was a super successful year, right? And then on the other hand, you have China, where it's like double digits and just everything is like sometimes when you see these time lapse images of Shanghai, for example, like, you know, 20, 40 years ago, this was just a village at the river, and now look at, the skyline and all of that. The speed of change is just breathtaking for us in the, more saturated part of the world. And so I'm just wondering what might be some differences that you see in the attitude towards change and in the way that change is managed between China and Canada, for example.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. Actually, I moved to Canada 8 years ago. Um, when I was in China, actually, um, uh, um, the changes was already very, very big every year. Like especially my hometown Shanghai, Shanghai, the speed is like rocket science. It's like a rocket speed. And actually, in the past even 8 years, even I live in Canada, but I also travel back to China like 4 to 5 times a year. Actually, the change continues every year, and one thing I noticed is people really love to learn. Chinese people are so eager to learn. And that's the reason why Erickson Coaching is the number one coaching school in China. We have been there for 13 years, and we are so successful because we develop thousands and thousands of coaches there. And the Chinese people are so eager to learn. And when I also view these big companies, the giant companies in China like Alibaba, like Tencent, um, like their organization, their coaching culture, their learning culture is totally fascinating me. Um, and uh, and how they implement the coaching culture, how they implement this agile organization, how they implement this value-based organization. Also, totally like because I studied them a lot, and they really implement that, and they really, it's just like you said, they put their focus, they put their purpose, put their value into their performance evaluation, and that's the reason why the business grow so fast. So I guess the learning is important, and we do need to make ourselves ready for the change, which is to learn and to keep learning, to have the growth mindset. um yeah, I can see Chinese people are so like working so hard to learn, but at the same time we also need to know the purpose of learning. That's I think that's the value of coaching. We do you learn out of fear, or do you learn out of hope? You have to learn, otherwise people will catch you. Or I love to learn because I know the future is waiting for me. I know what kind of capability I'm building, which will lead to my personal vision and the organizational vision. So I guess that's the difference, and definitely, yeah, yeah, a lot of learning.
Wow. Do you learn out of fear or do you learn out of hope? That's a powerful question. So that's something everybody might ask themselves. I'm kind of going through it in my head right now, and it is a big difference, isn't it? Um, and I'm noticing that here in Nairobi, Kenya, and in Africa as well, that there's so much hope. There's such a young population here, and there's such dynamic change. And you wouldn't like the startup community here is off the charts. And we don't know about that in Europe often, right? Because we have this image of like that's where the old clothes go, and I don't know what. Um, but that's exactly it. Are you learning because it's an inconvenience? You kind of have to because otherwise you lose what you kind of been taking for granted, or are you learning because there's this amazing new world that you might create with the new knowledge that you have, and you have this learner's mindset, this beginner's mindset that allows you to have that humility, Brigitte, that you were talking about when you were talking about switching industries and that sort of thing. Um, to start from the bottom, maybe even again, and maybe even a third time, because that's
Mhm.
what it takes to reach your vision. Um, yeah. So I think that's a beautiful spot actually to kind of stick the landing on. I'm just curious, what might we not have talked about? What might be one thing you want to underline from the conversation? What is one thing that you want to that you really want above everything else people to remember once they move on from this live stream? Brigitte, maybe we start with you.
Wow, what a question. um, I really, I love how you phrased it, Avis. So, are you learning out of fear or out of hope? So, for me, hope is together with optimism and a strong sense of self, is what's giving you the resilience, the motivation to start over, to redevelop, to redesign yourself, to redesign your company, to redesign your team. And I think if that is in the forefront, your pride maybe can step into the background, and you're taking this as a new opportunity, really as a new opportunity to experience, to grow, and to learn, to create something fabulous new that you are part of, to make it better for everybody. So, this hope to start new is not a failure. It's not something that you want to stay away from. It is, you're looking for that. You actually want to dive into it because it means you're living your value of hope.
Especially important to you as we're coming to a close here.
Yeah, actually, I feel a little bit regret because I had thought we would discuss a bit about our personal stories because three of us we was in the same class
That's
3 to
right.
4 years ago, actually in the same class, and see how we changed in the past 4 years. We are classmates. We are classmates. But one thing I would like to mention is, to thrive in change, you need to know what will not be changed. You need to know what's the core value you have. So if I could give one suggestion to you is, like, I know Erickson is very expensive. If you could not afford, at least join the free webinar, at least join us, and at least to find a coach near you, to really help you to find your core value, what's really important to me, and try to seek what's the possible vision. I'm passionate and I want to go there. I want to be part of that. Yes, start to seek inside, and then you could thrive outside. Um, yeah, I guess that's really what I would like to say, because 4 years ago I'm same, like I never know all these kind of things, but now all of us, three of us, we do change because of, because we know what's important inside. So yeah, that's what I would like to leave.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I would say you get what you pay for. And and if you want to take advantage of the current offer that we have at Ericsson, so for example, for coaching competencies for leaders, if you want to know more about how to create a coaching culture, how to put all of that, what we've been discussing, into practice and to meet with like-minded business leaders, where it also becomes sort of a mastermind and you learn from each other and you workshop things with each other, then feel very free to take advantage of the offer that's on the screen. You get 15% off coaching competencies for leaders and half off the art and science of mindfulness if you combine those two. That's a limited time offer. So, jump on that. Now's the time if you are interested in it. Um, and the other thing is, well, Avis, like, I don't want you to go off with this feeling of regret. So I guess we'll have to come back and do this again sometime, and
Yes, let's do this again.
and talk about
I really would
more of
like to
these
do that.
aspects. Wonderful. Thank you both so much. This was a lot of fun, and I learned so much. So I really, really appreciate the both of you. And Yeah, let's do this again soon. Let's stay in touch, and everybody, hope to see you again next week for another edition of Erickson Live. Take care.
Thank you, Fabian.